Hi everyone, in this video I'll be talking about linear perspective, and you'll learn how to draw simple boxes using 1 and 2 point perspective, and then you can manipulate those boxes to create other subjects, buildings, objects. You can build figures within the boxes that you'll draw. This sketch here is just a simple example of the possibilities. These are locks drawn in 1 point linear perspective. So I've established my angles of recession that veer off to a singular vanishing point in the distance. By starting out with perspective, I was able to block out the shape of the lock, and actually it helped me to foreshorten or distort the proportions of that lock as I drew it. A few things to keep in mind when you're working with 1 point perspective is that the verticals and the horizontals, and in this case my horizontals are the top and bottom of the lock, those lines will remain parallel. Okay, so anything like the sides of the lock that goes straight up and down, it's very easy to render this shape because I followed the rules of perspective, which is what I'm going to show you right now. So this is a simple exercise, but as you saw from my drawing, you're able to do something pretty complex with this simple idea. And it's the idea that takes something like this checkerboard, which is an example of isometric perspective, where there's actually no angle of recession, and it tilts it back in space. And when you tilt something back in space, you have created perspective, and the perspective also helps you, which is what you can see here, helps you to manipulate the scale so that things appear to recede as they get further off into the distance. So for this exercise, you will need a ruler and a pencil. And the first thing that I'd like you to do along with me is draw a line and label it as your horizon. Okay, your horizon line, think of this as your eye level. This is where you will find your vanishing points. Okay, a vanishing point, if you put a dot on that horizon line and label it as the VP, your vanishing point is that one point in the distance where all of your angles are going to recede. And I'm going to just draw two simple boxes and clean them up just a little bit. All right, and I'd like you to draw the same two boxes, one above the horizon line and one below the horizon line. This area closest to you is called the foreground. Okay, so now what you're going to do to turn these squares into boxes, you'll take your ruler, line it up with your vanishing point, turn it until it lines up with the edge of your box, and draw a diagonal line. Do that for all of the corners that are closest to the box. You could do it with this fourth corner and, make that line a little lighter so that you're actually going to see the inside of the box if you're so inclined, but you don't need to do that. This does help though if you're going to cut these boxes away and make different shapes out of them. Okay, for the box above the horizon line, line up with the edge of the cube, go to the vanishing point. Okay, line up with the edge of the cube, go to the vanishing point. My other two corners, because this box is almost directly above my vanishing point, I'm not actually going to see those angles, but you can draw them in again just so that you can see and really understand how perspective works. It does help to create the illusion of mass for you. All right, I'd like you to label these diagonal lines as orthogonal lines. Okay, the orthogonal lines, these are the angles that recede to your vanishing point. So now I've got these blocks that are coming forward, and I want to finish the illusion of perspective. What I mentioned at the start of my video is that the tops and the sides of your object, those are going to remain parallel. So I knew exactly how to draw the back of that box because I just had to make it mirror the front of the box. And you can make it, you know, I could have put the line way back here to have like a really long box, but I'd like to make it a little bit smaller. So we'll just drop it right there. Okay, and then you erase your orthogonals and you've completed the illusion. Here I'm going to, again, draw the bottom of the box, and I know that any horizontal lines and any vertical lines are going to remain parallel. So horizontal or flat, vertical or tall. Okay, so that's an easy way to remember how to draw in the sides, as well as the top and the bottom. And I'll just trace over that so you can see the cube emerge from those orthogonal lines. What happens if you've got a cube and it's right on the horizon line? Well, in that case, you won't see the top or the bottom. You're only going to see the side. Okay, and then to cap that off, remember all of your verticals are going to stay parallel. You could come in here and use value to further the illusion of, you know, 3 dimensions, right? I would also go in and erase the horizon line that's within that little block so that it looks like it's in front and not transparent. So that's a simple way to draw your cubes using 1-point perspective. With 2-point perspective, as the name suggests, you will have 2 vanishing points, 1, 2. So put a second vanishing point on your horizon, label it, and I'd like you to draw 3 lines, 3 vertical lines, 1 above, 1 below, and 1 right at your horizon line. And in order to draw this in 2-point perspective, you're going to line up your ruler with the bottom and the top of this line, and you're going to drag an orthogonal very lightly to the vanishing point on the left. I always remind students to lightly draw in the orthogonal lines because eventually you will want them to disappear so that your structure or your objects can actually emerge from the drawing. I'm using a mechanical pencil, which I think is really great for perspective. Just make sure you don't push down very hard. I like how the line stays nice and crisp. And I am pushing down harder than I would if this were a drawing instead of a demo because I want you to be able to see my marks. Okay, so now that I've got my orthogonals going to the left-hand side, I'm now going to line my ruler up with the bottom of each vertical and drag it over to the vanishing point on the right. So this looks almost like a wall or a big open book is what I always think of when you're first starting with 2-point perspective. Okay, and now what we're going to do, if you have a different colored pen, go ahead and use it, or a colored pencil. I'm going to show you how to complete these cubes following the rules of 2-point perspective. So what you should do is a vertical line in between the orthogonals, off to the left and off to the right. You're establishing the dimensions of this cube. Okay, how wide are the walls? Now I'm going to take my marker, and this dot that I just put on the left hand side, I'm going to line up my ruler with the top of that vertical mark and align it with my vanishing point. Drag an orthogonal line. Now the mark on the right, that's going to go to the opposite side. And this is the exciting part, because where these orthogonals cross, that's the end of your box. Okay, so now you've got your cube in perspective. Let's say that you want to add a pattern on top of this. Well, you could do the same thing. You could measure out along the walls of that box, line up to your vanishing point, line it up, with your little mark, so that even a striped pattern will end up falling in line and following the rules of perspective. On the sides, I don't have to worry about it because I know that those marks are going to remain parallel, right? Because they're vertical. And you could add a little value so that they pop away from the surface. And I'm making it lighter on top so it looks like the light source maybe is coming from the right hand side. So it's kind of a fun way to transform that box. Just remember, when you do start adding in your orthogonals, they're going to cross over to opposing vanishing points. So maybe you wanted to make a checkerboard pattern. Could cross over the top, or maybe just leave stripes on the side. All right, so for this guy up here, remember, you're going to take the bottom of each one of those lines and they'll cross over to opposing vanishing points. And I'm using my colored marker here just so you can see those lines as they emerge from the vanishing point. So I asked you to draw these marks above and below your horizon line. That's so you could see the difference it makes with your eye level. So if you've got something that's above the horizon line, you're seeing the bottom. But if you've got something below the horizon line, you're able to see the top. When something's right at the horizon line, you're only going to see the sides. Okay, so that's the basics of drawing cubes in perspective. This is a really good exercise to practice in your sketchbook until you get the hang of it, and try transforming some of those boxes. Once you've got the structure in there, add windows, add a pattern. Just make sure whatever you add follows the rules of perspective. So for instance, if I want to add a window on this block, I know that my vertical lines will remain parallel, right, to the sides, but the top and the bottom will follow that angle of recession. So I'll line up with my vanishing point and cap off the top of the window. Line up my vanishing point, cap off the bottom of the window. All right, and that's it. Have fun with it.